Christina told me to be controversial, so I am going to say that to me, when I look at the future of the workplace and the skills that are needed now and in the future, it seems really clear and really predictable what's happening. And I know people like Lawrence was talking about all the uncertainty, and people talk about that and focus on that a lot. I think the uncertainty is sort of circumscribed. It's in a little bubble, and all the things that are certain around it, you can see what's happening and what you need to do about it and where you need to be and where you don't need to be. So let me share a quote with you from Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon. And this was from an interview in 2017. I frequently get the question, what's going to change in the next 10 years? And that's a very interesting question. It's a very common one. I almost never get the question, what's not going to change in the next 10 years? And I submit to you that the second question is actually the more important of the two, because you can build a strategy around things that are stable in time. At Amazon, we know that customers want low prices, and I know that's going to be true 10 years from now. They want fast delivery, they want vast selection. It's impossible to imagine a future 10 years from now where a customer comes up to me and says, hey Jeff, I just love Amazon. I love Amazon, I just wish the prices were that little bit higher. Or, Jeff, Amazon's great, but I just wish you would deliver a little bit more slowly. Impossible. So, the effort we put into those things, spinning those things up, we know the energy we put into it today will still be paying off dividends for our customers 10 years from now. When you have something you know is true, even over the long term, you can afford to put a lot of energy into it. And that leads me to be thinking about this issue and my own children, who I care deeply about, and say, well, what do we know is true? And one of the things we know is true is that in the first world, there will be economic growth. The problem is a lot of the things that are true and predictable over a long period of time are also boring. And the Twitter sphere loves to tell stories panicking about change and AI and all the rest of it. And it's more interesting. But we can predict the future based on some very boring and ordinary things like this. But what is the effect over the long term of 2 or 3% economic growth? And it is gobsmacking increases in wealth in the first world. Gobsmacking. In a generation's time, society will be twice as wealthy, and in 2 generations' time, 3 or 4 times as wealthy. That means there's going to be twice as much stuff, twice as much schools, hospitals, infrastructure, technology as there is today. And that's not me saying that. Keynes wrote an essay about this in 1930, predicting on that kind of argument the size of the UK economy in 100 years' time, basically correctly. He said it was going to be 7 times bigger. There's 11 years to go, and it's about 5.5, 6 times bigger than it was in 1930. And one of the things that happened within his prediction period towards the beginning was a little event called the Second World War. So just, you know, there's similar arguments by Alan Greenspan and Warren Buffett. So I didn't make this stuff up. So when people think of the future economy, they think, what are the current jobs and what are the current skills? And the future will be something like that with more, you know, AI and uncertainty messing things up. And how can we carry on doing more or less what we're doing now with all this evil change going on? But that is not the future at all. The future is an economy 2 or 3 times the size in a generation's time. When I think about my children, if we're thinking about an education system and leadership in an education system, we need to prepare people for a much different future. Let's take when we went from agriculture to industrial. You know, people didn't stop producing and eating food. It's just there was all this other stuff like railways and factories and manufactured goods and textiles that they started doing in addition. And if you look at the top 5 US companies on the S&P 500, 4 of them, the top 4, a generation ago weren't a big thing. So the economy of tomorrow is going to involve a lot of different and new stuff, and that's highly predictable. So what are some, we need some better questions than how do we not change? And I think a better question, how do we not be in a position where we're in direct competition with 8 billion other people and possibly machines trying to do what we're doing now? I think that, how do we not find ourselves and how do we not direct our children into that sort of position? And how do we get individually and systemically to play in the bigger game? So what else do we know for sure? That sort of business term, product cycles are getting a lot shorter. It means that something is created, has its time in the sun, and then isn't the flavor of the month anymore. And the time of that happening is a lot shorter. And that's got a lot of impacts on the workplace and skills. And we know that skills in principle are in competition with everyone else, but assets are protected in law. Interesting. So I believe there's an economic ranking of skills. There's nothing about the social value or morality. It's just what is something economically worth. And at the bottom of that is knowledge, which if you can Google it, you can't charge somebody for it. That's gone. The 4 and 5 are really about skills, and the distinction for me is around anything to do with the actual product or service is a lot less solid an area to go into. The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, you don't want to be doing something like that. But 70% of the workforce, whatever the product or whatever the industry is, are not actually the expert in that product. They are doing what I call portable skills, like sales, marketing, the bookkeeper, management, project management, things like that. And when that product's time has gone, or the industry's time has gone, those people can move on to the next thing. They can go and the person doing marketing for Uber was doing marketing for someone else before Uber came along. And if Uber's not flavor of the month in 10 years, they'll be doing marketing for someone else. It's a portable skill. No, not a portable skill. No. Oh, that's my way of thinking about it. At the higher end of those portable skills are character, and at the top, it is actually direct wealth creation. So what is wealth and what even are assets? These are the things in society that, I've got a list of them there, take a lot of blood, sweat and tears and pain and suffering by entrepreneurs and others, entrepreneurs if it's in the private sector, to put into place. And once they're in place, they produce benefits for society, either financial or non-financial benefits over a very long period of time. If there are more and better homes, schools, hospitals, roads, infrastructure, technology in society, we are all better off as a society. And the name of, I think this may be where, I don't know if you were saying, Chris, but I took away from your talk, you were quite negative about anything to do with money. So I'm not sure if this is your position or not, but I'm very positive about that it's a moral imperative to build these things up and grow the assets within society. And people who are directly doing that are, I think, in a great place economically in the future. So I'll give you a sort of silly example. I'm involved in a small venture fund, and we're doing that sort of meet and greet thing with the other partners. And one of the guys said, oh yes, run this technology company. How did you get to do that? Well, I'm 50 years old and I'm a sales guy, and we sold out of the last business, and I just figured no one would employ a 50-year-old sales guy. So I bought this company, and now I'm running this company. So I think the future of at the top end of employment is much more about can you get a chip in the bigger game, which is ownership of assets and leveraging off assets and building assets. And as a company, that's the chip in the bigger game for us as a country, because in a globalized world, we've either got to own or be owned. It's either that the people of Britain are going to be owning assets that are successful worldwide, or people in other countries are going to be owning us. Thank you.